In Texas prisons, there's a name whispered more than any other. A name guards dread, inmates respect, and rival gangs fear. They don't wear colors. They don't live by a strict hierarchy. They have no official leader. Yet they're one of the fastest growing prison gangs in America. They are called Tango Blast. But within Tango Blast lies a subset, a faction that moves like a shadow army inside Texas prisons. They call themselves Houston, and this is their story. Yex Guard, Tango Blast, you never see them coming. Houston Set, they're the worst. They'll smile at you in chow and jump you in the hallway 10 seconds later. They have no fear. None. Former inmate, Houston Blast ain't like the others. They run the pod without saying a word. If they want you gone, you'll be packed up before you even know you're a target. No hierarchy, no structure, no rules. So how did a gang with no leader become one of the most dangerous in Texas? Before we begin, if you love raw, unfiltered stories from inside America's most dangerous prisons, hit like, share this documentary with someone who loves true crime, and subscribe so you never miss a story that the system doesn't want you to hear. Because what you're about to witness isn't just a prison gang story. It's a warning. Inside the Texas prison system, there's a name spoken quietly, a name that guards fear, inmates respect, and investigators can't control. A gang with no leader, no hierarchy, no rules, just pure numbers and pure chaos. They are called Tango Blast. But within Tango Blast lies a faction more volatile, more unpredictable, more fear than all the others. They call themselves Houston. Some say they're Texas's most dangerous prison gang. Others say they're not a gang at all, but a movement with thousands of members inside the walls and roaming free on the streets. Today, we're stepping inside their world, inside their codes, inside their wars, inside their empire. This is Inside Houston Tango Blast, Texas's most dangerous prison gang, the birth of a beast. To understand Houston Tango Blast, you must first understand the Texas prison system, a system where alliances aren't made by choice, but survival. Back then, Texas was a battlefield. The Mexican Mafia, Texas Syndicate, Aryan Brotherhood, they ruled with iron fists. Latin inmates from cities like Houston, Dallas, Austin, San Antonio, they were outnumbered, outorganized, outarmed. So they banded together, not as a single army, but as city-based crews, each protecting its own. This was the start of what would later be known as Tango Blast. What makes Tanos different? Unlike traditional gangs, Tango Blast doesn't operate like the mafia or cartels. There's no shot caller, no rank system, no formal initiation ritual. If you're from Houston, you blast with Houston. If you're from Dallas, you blast with Dallas. But Houston became something else entirely. Former inmate, Houston is the wild one. Dallas got big numbers. San Antonio sticks together. But Houston, it's unpredictable. They're the ones who'll go to war without asking permission. Inside the Houston set, Houston Tango Blast, known simply as Hometown, HTX, or Hustletown, dominates some of the toughest Texas units. Pulaski, Connolly, Caulfield, Wynn Unit, Darrington. Inside these walls, the Houston set has a reputation. Their strength comes from one thing: numbers. Tango Blast is one of the biggest prison groups in Texas. Some estimates claim over 14,000 members across prisons and the free world. But Houston brings a different energy. Former inmate, hometown boys got that street in them. If they think you're disrespecting, they'll check you right there. No politics, just action. How you join. Joining Houston Tango Blast isn't like joining the Aryan Brotherhood or Mexican Mafia. There's only one requirement. You must be from Houston. Former inmate. If you're from the H, you blast with the H, period. That's your city, your familia. But understanding that simplicity is where the danger begins. Because when everyone from a city is automatically considered part of the gang, the numbers explode. The reality of no rules, no hierarchy sounds like freedom. But in prison, it means chaos. Fights break out without warning. Beefs escalate fast. There's no one to stop the violence or to approve it. A Houston Blast member can start a war without running it up the chain because there is no chain. The X-Guard, with the Syndicate or the Mexicanos, there's rules, structure. If someone steps out of line, their own gang will discipline them. With Houston, who's going to check them? Nobody. Symbols, tattoos, and codes. Houston Tango Blast members are known for their ink, tattoos that tell their entire story. Hometown skyline, Lone Star, Astro Star, 713, Third Coast, screwed up, purple drank symbols, HTX across knuckles. Former inmate, if you see the skyline on somebody, 9 times out of 10, they blast with Houston. But some tattoos carry deeper meaning. Sereno's 13 influence, Houston hood sets, screw culture ties, prison-specific symbols like star plus T plus X patterns. Houston versus other tangos. Not all tango sets get along, and that includes with each other. Houston and Dallas, historically tense. San Antonio, neutral but cautious. Austin, smaller but smart. Former inmate, Houston boys fight quick. Dallas boys fight deep. SA fight smart. But when Houston and Dallas run into each other and there's a disagreement, oh, it's going down. Control and power. In many Texas units, Houston Blast members control the day room, phones, store hustle, lookouts, contraband pipeline, even certain guards through intimidation. The X-Guard, it's not that they control the whole prison, but they control key parts enough to tilt the balance. The free world connection. Houston Tango Blast isn't just a prison gang. It's a street organization. Outside, they run car theft rings, drug distribution, robbery crews, nightclub security, stolen car auctions, fraud operations, drug houses, human smuggling connections with cartels. Former detective, it's hard to track them. No leaders, no meetings. They move like a cloud. They form, disperse, reform. It's unpredictable. A system that created a monster. Texas prisons are overcrowded, understaffed, and in the chaos, Houston Tango Blast thrives. In this environment, a decentralized, fast-growing prison gang becomes more than just another crew. It becomes a survival machine. And Houston? Houston is the engine, the name they whisper. Inside Texas prisons, one word carries more weight than razor wire itself. A word never shouted, never spoken loud, only whispered, usually right before something goes wrong. That word is tango. Tango Blast isn't like the Mexican Mafia, not like the Aryan Brotherhood, not like the Bloods, Crips, or even MS-13. This isn't a classic top-down gang built on organized chains of command. Tango Blast is something far more dangerous. A swarm, a decentralized network with no official leaders, thousands of members, and only one rule: blast with your city. Houston, Dallas, Austin, Fort Worth, San Antonio, and among them, one set stands out: Houston. They say the Houston set is the most unpredictable, the most reckless, the most feared of all tango factions. Some call them a family. Others call them a storm. But inside the walls, most call them something else. The ones you don't cross. Texas in the 1980s. A pressure cooker. To understand how the Houston set became a powerhouse, you need to travel back to a time when Texas prisons were barely controlled war zones. The 1980s. Overcrowding was at catastrophic levels. Guards were undertrained, understaffed, and overwhelmed. Violence was constant. Stabbings were weekly. And survival? That depended on who stood behind you and who stood against you. Gangs like the Mexican Mafia and Texas Syndicate ran the show. They operated like military units, organized, hierarchical, disciplined. Latino inmates from Houston, Dallas, San Antonio, Austin. They were scattered, divided, easy targets. Former inmate. If you weren't rolling with one of the big gangs, you were food. Simple as that. And so something new started forming. Not a cartel, not a coalition, a city-based brotherhood. Houston stuck with Houston, Dallas with Dallas, SA with SA. It wasn't a gang at first. It was survival. But inside this pressure cooker, survival evolves. The rise of the tangos. The word tango originally came from the word Tango County, slang for 4 major Texas metro areas. At first, the sets were loose crews, friends protecting friends, homeboys protecting homeboys. But when thousands of men from the same cities kept getting locked up, those crews turned into mini armies. No initiation, no hierarchy, just one bond. Where you from, homie? Houston? You blast with Houston. Dallas? You blast with Dallas. Simple, clean, powerful. And then something unexpected happened. Houston became the loudest, wildest, most fearless of them all. Why? Because Houston inmates brought something different with them. A street culture steeped in hustling, in survival, in music, in chaos, in pride. Houston culture on the streets created Houston culture behind the walls. And that culture, it exploded. Who are the Houston Tango Blast? Houston Tango Blast, hometown HTX, Third Coast Hustle Town, grew faster than anyone expected. Not because they recruited, but because Houston itself was massive. And every time another young man from the H touched down on a Texas unit, he was automatically part of the blast. Former inmate. You don't join Houston Blast. You are Houston Blast. If you claim the H, they ride with you. This automatic enrollment made the Houston set one of the largest prison crews in Texas, and the most feared. But here's the twist. Houston Blast isn't run like a gang at all. There are no ranks, no generals, no command structure, no official leaders, which means anyone can make a decision. Anyone can start a conflict. Anyone can pull the trigger, and no one can stop them. The X-Guard, they're the most dangerous because they're leaderless. If one Houston guy gets into it, the whole city stands up. No questions. Chaos is a weapon. Prison gangs with strict rules operate like corporations. Orders flow down. Consequences flow up. But Houston Blast? They operate like a riot. Fast, chaotic, unpredictable. A small fight can turn into a full-scale pod war. Because Houston doesn't wait for permission. Houston reacts. And that lack of structure, that unpredictability, it terrifies guards more than any organized gang. The X-Guard. With Mexican Mafia, you know the rules. You know who calls the shots. With Houston Blast, anyone can be the shot caller at any moment. The tattoos that tell the story. Houston Blast members wear their identity like armor. Their skin becomes a map of their life. Houston skyline, HTX or hometown, Astro Star, 713, the Lone Star, purple drank references, screwed and chopped symbols, Third Coast, Houston neighborhoods, 5th Ward, 3rd Ward, Acres Homes, South Park, former inmate. If he's got that skyline, he's hometown. No doubt. But some tattoos go deeper. Stars with lines through them. Symbols only understood inside Texas prisons. Numbers that connect to old alliances. These tattoos are silent warnings. Don't mess with the H. Houston versus the other cities. Even inside the Tango Blast world, not all cities get along. Houston and Dallas? Infamous tension. San Antonio? Neutral until they're not. Austin? Smaller but moves smart. Fort Worth? A wild card. Former inmate. Houston dudes fight fast. Dallas dudes fight deep. SA dudes fight dirty. But when Houston and Dallas clash, everybody better run. The prison economy they control. Power inside prison isn't about who throws the hardest punch. It's about who controls the hustle. And inside many Texas units, Houston Blast controls key parts of the underground economy. Phone access, store runs, tobacco, Suboxone, K2, lookouts, eyes, tattooing, illegal cell phones, gambling tables, contraband routes. And in some units, even corrupt guards. Yex guard. When Houston runs a day room, everyone knows it. They won't even try to hide it. Where other gangs move like businesses, Houston moves like a street hustle. And that makes them dangerous. The outside world connection. The scariest part of the Houston set isn't what they do behind the walls, but what they do outside. Because unlike most prison gangs, Tango Blast operates heavily on the streets. Houston Blast members on the outside run, car theft crews, drug houses, stolen car auctions, fraud operations, nightclub security, weapons trafficking, organized robberies, human smuggling pipelines linked to cartels. Former detective. They don't have leaders. They have networks. You cut off one head, 5 more pop up. A system that can't contain them. Texas prisons are overcrowded, understaffed, and unstable. And in that chaos, Houston Tango Blast grows. Graphic flash. Staff shortages equals 45%. Violence up 60%. Contraband phones seized equals 20,000 plus per year. In this environment, a decentralized gang becomes nearly unstoppable. And Houston is the most explosive piece of the puzzle. But the deeper you go into Houston Blast, the darker it gets. Because next, we explore their wars, their codes, their deadliest stories, and the one thing that even Houston members fear. When war comes to the pod. In Texas prisons, violence doesn't erupt slowly. It detonates. One wrong look, one wrong debt, one wrong rumor, and a pod can turn into a battlefield in less than 5 seconds. And when Houston Tango Blast is involved, that fuse burns even faster. Former inmate number 1. Houston dudes don't argue. They swing. You disrespect? It's instant. Former inmate number 2. A Houston Blast member don't need a reason to fight. He needs a moment. Because the Houston set's power isn't organization. It's reaction. A conventional gang thinks. Houston reacts. A conventional gang debates. Houston strikes. A conventional gang calculates. Houston moves now, and that makes them terrifying. The nod. Inside prison, words can get you caught. Words can get you watched. Words can get you killed. Houston Blast developed something different. Something subtle, simple, and deadly effective. The nod. A slight tilt of the chin. Barely noticeable. Easy to miss. But inside the pod, that's all it takes. Former guard. You see that nod? You better hit the panic button. 'Cause something is about to explode. The nod is how Houston moves as one. How they act without leadership. How they mimic order without ever electing a leader. It's not communication. It's instinct. A story from the walls. To understand the Houston set, you need to hear what happened on a Tuesday morning inside the Darrington unit. Dim lighting. Inmates lining up for chow. A Dallas Tango inmate and a Houston inmate bump into each other in the line. The Dallas inmate says, "You need to watch yourself, homie." The Houston inmate just smirks. He doesn't reply. He doesn't posture. He doesn't threaten. He just gives the nod within 5 seconds. 5 seconds. 6 Houston Blast members peel off from different parts of the line. No talking. No warning. The Dallas inmate never sees it coming. Former inmate. That dude got hit so fast and so clean he thought he slipped and fell. Then he saw the blood. Guards rushed in. Chow hall locked down. Everyone thrown to the floor. And when the officers asked who started it, nobody snitched. Nobody spoke. Nobody even pointed. Because Houston Blast doesn't fear discipline. They don't fear solitary. They don't fear write-ups. They fear only one thing. We'll get to that soon. Houston's unwritten rules. Houston Tango Blast doesn't follow traditional gang rules. But that doesn't mean they operate without structure. They have unwritten codes, passed down through stories, not meetings. Codes like, 1. Stand with your city. If you're from Houston, you're Blast by default. If your city mate is in trouble, you're already involved. 2. React, don't hesitate. In prison, hesitation can mean death. Houston members move first. 3. Don't disrespect the H. This is sacred. If someone from another city mocks Houston, war is on the table. 4. Never snitch. Not even a whisper. Snitching isn't punished. It's erased. 5. Always check paperwork. If a new Houston inmate arrives, someone will verify his charges. If his paperwork is dirty, he can't stay. These rules aren't written. They're lived. When Houston clashes with Houston, every gang has enemies. But Houston Blast has a unique threat. Themselves. When you have no leader, no hierarchy, no decision-making chain. Sometimes, Houston members clash with each other. Over drugs. Over debts. Over ego. And when Houston fights Houston, it's different from fighting outsiders. Former inmate. When Houston checks Houston, it's personal. That's when you see real violence. It isn't about power. It's about pride. And the most respected Houston members aren't the strongest, but the ones who can keep the set from cannibalizing itself. Those are the ones Houston secretly calls the voices. Veterans who step into drama and calm the fire before it burns the whole unit down. They're not leaders, not shot callers, just men the city respects. But even they can't stop everything. The only thing Houston fears. Earlier, we said Houston Blast fears one thing. Not death, not solitary, not rival gangs, not even the Texas Department of Criminal Justice. So what is it? Isolation. Because Houston Blast isn't powerful because of violence. They're powerful because of numbers. When you isolate a Houston member, remove him from his day room, his set, his people, you cut off his advantage. You make him just another inmate. Texas prisons know this, and they use it. Former warden. You separate a Houston inmate from a city, he's a different person. He goes quiet, real quiet. But the prison system can't isolate all of them, not thousands. And that is why Houston Blast keeps growing. Inside the walls, outside the walls, across the entire state. What comes next? The Houston set isn't slowing down. It isn't shrinking. It isn't settling. It's spreading. And what comes next may be the most dangerous era Texas has ever seen. But to understand that future, you need to understand their past crimes, their wars, their alliances, and the stories the state tried to bury. Because now we dive deeper into the riots, into the killings, into the escapes, into the darkest chapters in Houston Tango Blast history. This is only the beginning, the first generation. But while the idea of unity spread like wildfire, the early days of Houston Tango Blast weren't glamorous. They weren't organized. There were no commanders, no councils, no elaborate hierarchy, just survival, just chaos, just a group of Houston inmates learning very fast. That power in Texas prisons doesn't come from talking. It comes from fighting. Former inmate. We didn't have rules back then. No constitution. You roll with Houston or you didn't. But once you claimed that H, you were family. And if one of us got jumped, everybody ate. War on the rec yard. The other gangs weren't stupid. They watched Houston Tango Blast grow. Too fast, too loud, too unpredictable. One day, something snapped. Concrete basketball court. 2 Houston Tango Blast members arguing with a member of the Texas Syndicate. Other inmates circle like sharks. In 1998, at a medium security unit east of Houston, tensions finally boiled over. A single punch. One body hitting the ground. And then, the rec yard exploded. Inmates charged. Shanks flashed. Alarms blared. Guards tackled whoever they could. Former co-reenactment. We hit that siren, and every officer knew. This wasn't a fight. This was a war declaration. The prison lockdown that changed everything. The riot led to a statewide lockdown. Every Tango Blast member, Houston, Dallas, Fort Worth, Austin, was swept into the gang files. No more loose crew. No more pretending. The Texas Department of Criminal Justice now consider them an official threat group. And what happens when you label a gang a threat? You give them something they never had before. Identity, recognition, purpose. Houston Tango Blast took the heat. and turned it into momentum, the surprising evolution. But here's the strange part. Most prison gangs become more structured as they grow. They build ranks, create bylaws, form chains of command. Houston Tango Blast did the opposite. They stayed decentralized. No shot callers, no generals, no written rules. Why? A former gang expert explains. Gang analyst. Tango Blast flipped the script. They learned that the more structure a gang has, the easier it is for law enforcement to crush it. So Houston avoided leaders on purpose. No hierarchy means no one to take down. The blasters take over. By the early 2000s, Tango Blast had spread to Houston, Dallas, Fort Worth, Austin, San Antonio, El Paso, the Rio Grande Valley. But something unique happened. The Houston set, the hometown blasters, exploded faster than anyone expected. Because Houston is different. Houston is a melting pot. Latino, Black, White, Asian, every culture, every neighborhood. That diversity seeped into Tango Blast DNA. Unlike old-school prison gangs divided by strict race lines, Houston Tango Blast didn't care. If you were from hometown, you were in. Former inmate, that was the power. We weren't divided like the other groups. We had swan gas, slabs, the city, the culture. Houston runs deep. Homie, you could feel in the pod. The power shift on the inside. Texas prisons operate on politics, territory, alliances, racial lines, old grudges. But Houston Tango Blast? They controlled everything by numbers. Lunch tables? Houston. Rec yard? Houston. Phones? Houston. Day room benches? Houston. In some units, hometown ran 60 to 70% of the entire population. One officer recalls. Correctional officer. There were days we walked into the day room and realized Tango Blast outnumbered the guards by 100 to 1. You felt it. The energy changed. We weren't in charge anymore. The internal dilemma. But power breeds problems. Without a hierarchy, anyone could claim to be Houston Tango Blast. Anyone could act reckless, start fights, bring heat, and because there was no leader, no one could stop them. Some members pushed for more structure, more control. Others fought to keep the set loose and wild. It became a silent battle, chaos versus organization. And that battle would erupt in a way Houston Tango Blast never expected. The first internal split. Inside one Texas prison unit, an argument over drugs, money, and pride spiraled out of control. Houston blasters ended up clashing with each other. Not rivals, not other cities. Themselves. Former inmate. That was the moment everybody realized. We're too big. We don't even know who's who anymore. The turning point. The split forced the group to evolve. Not into a strict gang, but into something far more efficient. A network. A decentralized criminal ecosystem that could survive inside and outside prison walls. A structure built not on orders, but on reputation. If you acted reckless, disrespected the city, or broke the unwritten code, you didn't get punished. You got removed permanently. The growth beyond the walls. When members made parole or completed their sentences, they didn't leave Houston Tango Blast behind. They brought it home. Into Houston neighborhoods, apartment complexes, nightlife, car clubs, street organizations. Suddenly, the prison gang wasn't just in prison, it was in the streets. And law enforcement was about to realize Houston Tango Blast was no longer a prison problem, but a statewide one. In the end, Houston Tango Blast remains one of the most elusive forces inside the Texas prison system. No leaders. No structure, no blueprint carved into the walls. Just a name, a city, and a reputation that survives no matter how many cells close behind it. Slow drone shot, a Texas highway at sunset, orange glow, cars moving like ghosts toward Houston. You can lock a man up. You can bury him in paperwork. You can stamp security threat group across his file. But you can't cage an idea. And inside those prison walls, Houston isn't a place. It's a tribe, a code, a promise whispered through steel bars and cracked concrete. If you're from the H, you're never alone. And now you've seen the truth for yourself. A truth rarely spoken on the record, but always felt by those who've lived it. Beat of silence. If the story opened your eyes, if it pulled you into the shadows where few dare to look, then make sure this journey doesn't stop here. Hit that like button so this story reaches more people. Share it with someone who thinks they know what really happens behind Texas prison walls. And if you want more deep dive, unfiltered, boots on the ground documentaries just like this one, subscribe to the channel. Because the next story we uncover may be even darker. Thank you for watching. Stay curious. Stay aware.